So before I start this panel, I would like to ask a question from the audience. How many of you really want to retire early? Okay, few hands, but especially among the younger generation, a lot of people, they aspire to retire early. That's the buzzword. FIRE is something that we all know about. Financially independent, retire early. So we are discussing that theme here. Of course, it relates to financial freedom, and financial freedom means different things to different people. It could be, somebody might just want to follow their passion instead of doing a regular job, or just want to, basically break out from the daily rut. So we have a panel of lovely ladies today, and this was very much on purpose because, in the industry, we mostly have men on the stage. So it was very much on purpose that I invited only ladies for this panel. And these... And all the women, let me mention that they are really slaying it when it comes to financial guidance. So welcome all. And Bhuvanaa, I'll put my first question to you. How would you define financial freedom, whether it is at 40s, 50s, or 60s?
Okay, thank you for having me here today, Nidhi. And see, financial freedom defined by different people different way, but I would say it's not so much about money, it's about time. The freedom of being able to spend your time the way you want is what is financial freedom. So if you have the choice to work or not work or do what you choose, then I think that is freedom in the real sense. Yeah.
Okay. So my next question is to you, Dilshad. And I would request all of you to, anybody could take the question, add to the answer whenever you feel like coming. So Dilshad, do you think this goal is practically achievable? Because it does involve planning and kind of money to achieve financial freedom earlier than 60.
Right. So first of all, thank you very much to Outlook, and thanks to Nidhi, this editor of Outlook Money, for having me here. So I think, it's all actually financial planning, and mind you, this is financial planning month, right? So how many of us have our financial plans in place? Excellent, great, great. So, so financial planning, if it's actually boring, if you have your kind of agenda written in terms of your budgeting and your goals and your expenses and your cash flows and your assets, I think people can achieve financial freedom. So it's all about disciplined savings and investments. And if you're able to do that systematically over a period of time, with the power of compounding, I think definitely people can achieve the financial freedom, yeah.
Okay. So Priya, people can achieve financial freedom with planning. But in a lot of cases, maybe the middle class, perhaps that may not be as practical. So at a younger age, should one really focus on concepts like early financial freedom, and I'm stressing on the fact early financial freedom, or look at other goals, or kind of basically building up a life towards other goals?
So Nidhi, you're talking about the Gen Z, right? So it's about the 20s and 25-year-old demographic. It's a very impressive demographic because we do have quite a lot of clients, young, kids coming to us at that age who've just started on their first job, starting to invest. And I find that this generation of, these youngsters, it's quite complicated to do a financial plan for them because at that stage of their lives, they go through several transitions. So by the time they've come to us, they've almost changed 3 jobs. So if you ask them, why you've just begun, what's happened? So, the first job, my pay wasn't very high. Or the second job, they posted me somewhere else, so I had to change it. Third job, because I thought, okay, let me try and buy a bike. My salary wasn't enough to pay for my EMIs. So by the time they are 26, 27, they have been through so many transitions of their life in their lives that, sometimes it's hard for me to even relate. But it's a very smart generation. And to this generation, I had, run a workshop a couple of months ago, and had invited all of these people to come in there. And I asked them, okay, there are about 20, 30 of you in this room. how many of you are single? Put up your hands. Of course, most of them put up their hands, they were all single. I said, how many of you in this room don't have any dependence on you at all? There's nobody dependent on you financially, like a brother or a sister or a parent. So whoever's dependent on you, put your hands down. So some of them did. So the people who were left remaining with their hands up in the room were the ones who had no dependence on them. All they had to do was just spend on themselves. I said, okay, so there are a lot of you here who have no dependence on you. There's no drawdown on your money. It's all yours to spend. But here's what I'd like you to do. Take your phones out. I'd like you to download this app called Aging Booth. Or it's also, you can go to Google Play Store or the Apple, store and then download this app called the Aging Booth, or it's also called, I think, Face app. So what this allows you to do is to really fast track your age to how you would look when you were 75 years old. It's quite disconcerting to look at it because you upload a picture of yours and you look at it and then, suddenly you're like, aged by about 30, 40 years. And I said, you don't have any dependence on you today, but you look at this person who's staring back at you in this app, it is you. It is the 75-year-old you that is dependent on you. So the things that you do today must be done to take care of your 75-year-old self. So don't always think that, I don't have anything to do, I have no dependence, I can spend all the money. By all means, there's a 25-year-old you who you should definitely spend on because that's what you're earning for. But don't forget this face that's staring back at you. That's a 75-year-old you. And the earlier you start, the better it is.
So absolutely, that was a lovely thing to think about. A 75-year-old you staring at you as a dependent. So that's a thought. And Bhuvanaa, I would like to come to you on that. We're talking about retirement planning, of course, which is a form of financial freedom. So when you attain the age of 60, so what will be your top recommendation for people who are into a retirement plan? How do they go about it?
Okay, so before answering that question, if I can just add on to what Dilshad was talking about, is is financial freedom possible at 40? I think that depends on one's lifestyle, right? So if you are willing to be flexible about your lifestyle, you can be financially free any day, right? So there was somebody who spoke to me. He was about 32 years old and he was really bugged with his job, and he wanted to opt out and do some chess coaching, right? So that was his intention, and he was perfectly all right to move to a smaller city. He was okay to put his children through government aided schools. He was okay to go on holidays nearby. Right? He was willing to make those changes to his lifestyle, and then financial freedom is possible, right? So it is what you have and what you need, and if they can match, then you're financially free. And what you have is controllable in certain ways, and what you need is also controllable in certain ways. So financial freedom is a possibility if you're willing to look on both sides, right?
Are open to adjustments.
Yeah, you're open to adjustments. So whatever's more important to you, if your lifestyle is more important to you, then that way. If freedom is more important to you, and then that way, right? So finding that balance, I think, is very critical. And coming back to your question on recommendations for somebody who's going to retire at 60, will be don't retire.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
We are also on the same page.
Yeah. So in 1947, the average life expectancy of an Indian was about 35 years. And the retirement age was 55 years. So what were you expecting? We were not expecting people to live until 55. If they do, they could retire at 55. Today, life expectancy has gone up to 70. And your retirement age has gone up from 55 to 58. Right? So, traditionally, retirement was never an idea in an agrarian society like ours. People worked till the last day of their life. And now at 40, you want to retire and chill and then, right, do what? Because all of your 20s, you've learned your technical skills, 30s, you've learned some soft skills, and you're at probably the peak of your capabilities, and now you want to shift. So, I'm not a big fan of this whole retiring retiring itself as an idea, but retiring early, completely different. But at 60, if somebody has to retire, they don't have a choice. I would say retire with a plan, not just for the money, but also for your time. So we keep coming back and saying, don't start your retirement plan with a calculator, start with a calendar. So unless you know what you're going to do with your time in retirement, all the money that you save up will go to the hospital. It will not go to your holidays, it will not go to your children, right? So if you don't have something productive to do with your time, you'll get bored, you'll fall sick, right? All of that, I mean, we see that happen to family around us. So,
Dilshad and
just
Priya,
my
would you like to add on this very interesting question on retire early and then do what?
I'll just go first and
Sure.
one second. So we had a conference just like this, and it was, a person from the US who actually focuses on retirement kind of planning for senior people. And he had a client of his who said, today is my first day of retirement and I'm looking forward to playing golf, and I'm looking forward to playing golf the whole day instead of just playing it over the weekend. And when he started playing golf once, twice, week after week, he hated it. And that's when he realized that, hey, golf is not good for me. I was never good at golf. I just kept waiting for this day, thinking that when I retire, I'm going to enjoy it thoroughly. And he was never a good golf player. And he really did not like that, part of his life. And he had to realize at that time that what else can he do that's going to give him that sense of joy and happiness. And I think, like Bhuvanaa said, there are so many other psychological factors, right? So what is loneliness? Spending time with family, vacations. You're already, as a couple, like an empty nest egg, right? So your kids may be abroad or even studying in India, but what needs to be done for you as a family as well? I think these are considerations besides just that golden corpus number that one needs to work and discuss with their clients.
Absolutely. Priya, you want to add something?
Yeah, so there's this very famous rock band called Eagles. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's one of my favorite bands. And so they released this song called Hotel California in 1977. And their lead singer, Don Henley, thank goodness he didn't retire at 55, because that song is such a legend. And the reason I'm mentioning this song is because it says you can check out when you want, but you can never leave. And the song has so much of symbolism for me, because I was part of a rock band, all girls rock band, by the way, so I listened to a lot of this music. But the point is that, Dilshad is absolutely right? You have a Pandit Ravi Shankar who performed till 92. You have a Pandit Bhimsen Joshi who performed till 89. You have Lata Mangeshkar. You have, entrepreneurs, politicians, all of these people who don't think about retiring. So why is it that, salaried people have to quit at 58, 60? It's a man-made problem. You don't have to do that. Instead, I think that, once you're approaching 60, you do all the things that you like to do and do less of the things that you don't like to do. So make that transition smooth. You have to always remember that there's, a certain irreversibility about retirement, right? Even people who retire early, for example, at 40s, 45, they strive towards that goal, do whatever they can, save, and they've reached that goal. Okay, I can say to them, good, you're financially independent today. You don't have to go to work from tomorrow. You quit. But, I've had so many cases in which people have, taken a sabbatical for a year, people have quit, and they've come back into the workforce after a year or so. Because retirement isn't all of those things that they imagined it to be. Because, how much can you travel? Travel is meant to, you're meant to travel when you have, finished doing work or something. It's supposed to be a recreation. You can't travel all your life. So you've met your children, you've met your nieces, nephews, you've watched several reruns of your favorite program, you've taken your wife to your favorite restaurant for dinner, you've played golf, like she mentioned, you've done all of that. Then what? You've got 30, 40, 50 years of your life stretching. You can't wake up in the morning and not have nothing to do, right? What makes you jump out of bed in the morning? What puts the fire in your belly to do, something? So The reason I mentioned there's a certain irreversibility to it is because even when you retire at 45 and a year later you realize that this is not the experience I imagined it to be. It's not sort of ideologically sitting in with my values, my interests. I've given up everything else, but I'm not replacing it with all the things that I like to do. You think, okay, I should go back to work. But it's not easy, that job market, right? If you've quit at 45 and a year and a half, 2 years later, you want to, enter the workforce again, there's all kinds of doubts in people's minds. Oh, were you given the pink slip? Why did you quit so early? And then you got to sort of, come back after a 2-year break, you come back at a lesser salary, and it's not the same. So people, to his own. Someone who wants to retire at 45 and you've got many different things to do, for example, start your business, it's great. India needs entrepreneurs, we need job creators. One of the biggest joys of starting Peak Alpha along with my husband Sham is that we employ 45, 50 people. And the big joy for me is at the end of the month when I cut a paycheck out to each of them, I'm employing people. People are earning a livelihood because of us. And I'm sure it's the same for you, Bhuvanaa and Dilshad also. So if you're planning to go on an entrepreneurial journey, great, but make sure you don't touch your retirement nest egg. But not having a plan to do something else just simply doesn't work because it is not human nature to be idle for 40 years. That is not how we work for the first 30, 40 years of our life. How can we assume that that's what it's going to be? So I would say tread very carefully because you're running on a treadmill and you don't just suddenly get off the treadmill, right? You got to stop and then climb back on it, and that climb back on the treadmill is not easy.
Right. So what I'm also hearing is that if you really want financial freedom early in life, think about what next. I think that's very, very important. But coming back to the financial aspect also, so, Bhuvanaa, I would ask you that in people who may be thinking of retiring in their 40s or 50s, that's also the time when your income kind of peaks up. So does it then really make sense to retire at this age when, which is kind of an accumulation phase for you? Because some of us, some of the people would have already been through the goals of children's education and stuff like that.
No, but I think an early, not at 40, but a 55 is probably a really great idea because what you can do at 55 is very different from what you can do at 65. And if your job has not been as fulfilling and you really have something that you think you'll enjoy more, at 55, I think you can reasonably earn it. And if your responsibilities are done, you put away a nest egg, and it's not really a financial decision. It's not a financial constraint to get past it. It's a great idea to retire in the early 50s. I've seen clients do amazing transitions. People move from Mumbai to places like Coorg and set up homestays. People who've moved from IT industry move to NGOs that help with visual impairment education, do high impact work. At 50 you still have energy, you still have it, your mental acuity is still very sharp. So I think it's an amazing idea to attempt something like that. Maybe not 40, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure whether 40 is a great idea, but 50s is really great, and it's very, very possible. Somebody who starts at 30, 35, retiring at about early 50s is a real possibility with some plan, some focus, some intent. Yeah.
Okay, great. So coming to you, Dilshad, so now we are talking about the planning stuff. And we recently had a video workshop on where you kind of showed the calculation on retirement, and it got great response. So would you tell our audience here also what are the main ingredients of retirement planning when you're calculating?
Sure. So it's quite simple. You understand first what are your living expenses and what is your lifestyle. And typically those kind of expenses that are going to not be there in retirement, like for example funding your children's education, etc., is removed. And then we typically start with early, mid, and late retirement calculations. So what would be the inflated value of today's expenses? What would be the corpus that you would need? And that is the golden figure. And how will that sustain till your life expectancy, right? So that's the trickiest one. Because we've actually dealt with people who've invested in bank deposits and come back to us saying that we've exhausted our corpus. What do we do now? right? So unfortunately, today, the maximum savings and investments predominantly still consists of fixed deposits in India. That's about 70%. People do not realize that sometimes with inflation, real return is actually negative. And therefore, you need to actually ensure that you invest in asset classes that give you inflation-adjusted returns. And like I said, the trickiest is the sustainability of this corpus, right till your life expectancy. And also other factors like, legal and, the fun part of it and the behavioral and the psychological. So we've dealt with different clients in different, these age groups. So it's very interesting to see how each one feels that they can sustain or they cannot sustain. And it's not just at the end of the day about the retirement corpus. There are so many things around that as well.
Right. So the calculation is not just about the numbers, but also about your life. And on that note, Priya, I wanted to ask you another very important question in this whole planning phase is will writing or succession planning. Now that's a tricky one because sometimes it is difficult to say talk to your parents about it or talk to your children about it, vice versa. So how does one tackle that, and why it is very important for everyone to have a will?
I mean, it goes without saying that everybody should have a will. Both husband, wife should have a mirror will, hopefully, and all our clients, we insist that they should definitely have a will, because a will is basically a document that tells, people after your time how you want your assets to be distributed. Because if you don't write that down, then it's going to get distributed according to perhaps the Hindu succession law or whatever it is. So you don't have as much control over it. So it is absolutely necessary. These are tricky conversations to have for sure. But I think the way to approach these conversations is to really be, I find it easy. So when my clients come to me and say, listen, I know, it's important for my parents to write the will, but I'm not quite sure how to broach that conversation with them. Because it would just seem that, I'll come across as very selfish, that, I'm perhaps waiting for them to die so that I can take all their money. I don't want it to come across that way. So what is the best way to go about doing that? And I say, bring them to me. Because sometimes, so you've grown up with your parents. There's something you can talk to them. There's some things you can't talk to them about. Some things that are just plain awkward. So it's hard to have these conversations with parents. But when you bring them to someone like a financial advisor, then there's an objectivity to it, there's a neutrality to it, there's no emotional baggage tied to it. And these conversations then become very easy, where I lay down the practicality of it and say, this is what you need to do, because if you don't, then this is what is going to be the impact of it. But I think that's the way to handle it. And we are a small group of advisors here, but there are hundreds and thousands of us here in this country. Make use of us, because we bring not just financial planning into the picture, we help you. We're almost like counselors, we're almost like therapists. And for these tough messages that you can't tell your parents about, we are here to, provide that service as well. So I would say use a financial advisor to have that tough conversation if you can't.
That's a very, very important point, that, it's not just the financial part, but actually advisors can lead you through a lot of difficult conversations, and between spouses, between parents and children, and so many other things that can complicate your money life. And once your money life gets complicated, maybe your actual life will also get complicated because of that. Dilshad wants to add
Just
something.
wanted to add on the will part. I think a takeaway for everyone here is, please register your will to ensure that that there is no complications that arise. Of course, complications can always arise even later, but it is substantiated if one registers their will and there's a probate to it. So yeah, just a takeaway when you're creating your will.
Okay, so I would be ending the session with a rapid fire round with you guys. Very simple questions, so no need to worry. So the first is, what is your top tip on retirement planning? And we'll start with Bhuvanaa and go on like that.
Don't retire.
Dilshad.
I think I would go with the same. Don't retire. Work for as long as you can.
So this is something I tell my clients. I said, what do you want to do in retirement? You want to be happy? Okay, be happy. But what does happy stand for? The word HAPPY, break it down. One, it's easy for us to remember acronyms, no? Because that's how we've grown up in school, remembering, oh, WIBGYOR is for all the colors of the rainbow, BODMAS is brackets of division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. So I say you want to be happy, then keep these 5 elements in mind. H, health. Take care of your health because you can't just leave it to chance. It's only when you're healthy that you enjoy your retirement. A is for the A in happy is for assets. You must have the assets to be able to fund your retirement, obviously, otherwise don't retire. P is just have, some sense of pursuit, passion, something that, makes you wake up in the morning and start the day on a good note. You must have something to aspire to. P is, the other P in happy is people. Because sometimes work is a proxy for many things, right? It's a proxy for your identity, it's a proxy for ambition, it's a proxy for your social network as well for some people. So when suddenly, you're not working, you've got to rebuild that social network again. So that other P is for building your people network. And Y is youthfulness. Never lose that childlike quality about you, because age is really a number. When you think you're old, you'll feel old. So have that childlike curiosity to learn something. I think if you keep these 5 elements in mind for happy, you truly will be happy in retirement.
Okay, so next question is again very simple. Are you financially independent yet? Are you financially free? And when did that happen?
Not really. I still have a son who has to go to work, and I still have parents dependent on me, so not yet.
Okay, Dilshad.
So just like age, number is also just a number, right? So what may be financial independence for someone could be completely different from another. But I think enjoying the journey more than looking to the destination is what what I would actually work towards for financial independence. And yes, today I am enjoying the journey. I do feel I've created sufficient, kind of a corpus, but it's not about the money at the end of it, right? It's more than that. It's giving back to the community, to your industry, about the importance of financial advisory. And that's probably why most of us here actually are still doing what we do, because it brings us a lot of happiness and kind of contentment. So, yeah.
So that's freedom, of course. That is what we were talking about. Priya?
Um, well, I'm going to give you a very straight answer, Nidhi. Yeah, I am financially independent because this is my profession. I better be if I'm advising other people. It's like, you go to a doctor, for example. First time you go to a doctor and you think that, oh, this guy is a bit of a quack. He doesn't quite know what he's doing. So you're not going to go back to that same bad doctor the next time, right? It is similarly true. If I am in my profession and I'm advising people day in and day out about being financially independent, that's the first thing I want to put in place for myself. I will make my own financial plan, and that's what I did 20 years ago before I started PeakAlpha. So yeah, I am financially independent.
Great answers, ladies, and thank you so much for joining us today. It was really a pleasure to talk to you all.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being
Thank
here.
you for having us.
Thank you, Nidhi.